Hey guys, welcome back to Miah's Workshop. Now I've got some pretty interesting and exciting stuff to talk about a little bit later in this video. If you're new here, thanks for tuning in. There's going to be some really cool stuff coming in future videos. But before I get into that and before we progress through where things are about to go, I do really feel like I'm supposed to just sit down and kind of just share some things about the journey I've been on and where I'm at, where I've been. I don't usually do this a lot. It's kind of a new thing for me. There's been just a lot of inner healing going on over the last few years. But I do feel like it's important. Part of it's going to be a little bit of an explanation of like why things have been a little inconsistent with this particular channel and the content that I've been hoping to put out. I've kind of gone back and forth on where I should start, but I think I know the way forward. Part of what's been going on is that, one, being a content creator is not an easy job. A lot of people don't understand like what's involved with it, and so that's a factor. But that's not really why I haven't been as present in this endeavor as I had hoped to be. And so I've really given a lot of thought to it, spent some time really kind of considering and honestly discussing with Jessica different stuff, and just, kind of trying to get to the bottom of like, why haven't I been able to really pursue this the way that I know that I'm capable of and that I think is important to do. And what I found is that I kind of got out of alignment somewhere, and like I'm not really sharing any of this for like a hey, it's okay kind of situation. Like, I approach things a lot of times with a mindset and an attitude of just like really identifying where things are, and it's okay. Like I don't feel any kind of like shame or condemnation for maybe getting out of alignment or not doing things the way that I had hoped. Like I'm really not stuck in that, but I do want to be able to identify why things are happening, so that way I can make adjustments and change. It's almost like reading a map. At least this is how I've understood it and applied it in my life. And when people do ask for my advice about these kinds of things, like, hey, I got off on this, or this isn't really where I'm supposed to be, I kind of share this with them. I'm like, for one, on a map, like to know how to navigate on a topographical map, like a paper map, you really need to identify where you're at. Because you got to know where you're at to be able to know where you're going. And I know that sounds really cliche, but like what I mean by that is like if you can't have an honest conversation about some mindsets that you have or some things that you should have done but haven't done and things like that, like then you really can't move forward because you can't acknowledge where exactly you're at. So for me to acknowledge exactly where I'm at, I have to kind of go back to what happened with me and my involvement in our first channel with Jessica and Roots and Refuge. Back before we moved to South Carolina, I was way more involved. Now, Jessica has definitely been the primary person who has run the Roots and Refuge content and everything that has been Roots and Refuge. Like, I've always done all the, construction and logistical business side of stuff, and that's always been the case. But before, I know for sure that before I moved to South Carolina, that I was a lot more involved, either being on videos that she was shooting and helping with that, or even shooting videos myself and posting them. And I kind of was like really digging deep into this and realized that like around the time that we moved was the last time that I had posted a video on that channel up until recently at all. And even furthermore, like I was way less involved in appearing on the channel as a whole. And part of that is just like I felt like and told myself that I didn't have time. I just didn't have time to do content, to be present in those regards, because I was doing all this other stuff. And it's not that I wasn't doing other stuff, it was that I was just letting a bunch of other stuff that really wasn't as important and could have been managed better, my time and just my mindsets, to be able to still be present with what is the most important thing of our job, which is connecting the people and inspiring them to change and to be better. Whether that's through food, through your relationship with your wife or your kids or whatever, however we are reaching people, like that is one of the most, if not the most important thing that we're doing. And I kind of just pulled away from that, and I made my excuses, and they felt justified. Like, okay, this is really important. Part of that was just the amount of work that needed to get done to move here. There was a lot of stuff that needed to get done. We had to build a farm back from scratch that we're still in the process of building. Gardens and fences and barns, and then we're adding in animals. I mean, and I'm not really making like justifiable excuses. It's just I'm just processing, and have been, like, all the stuff that kind of just pulled me away from that. And when I really get down to it, when I really think about it, the truth is that I could have still been involved. I had enough capacity and time. But I did use that stuff as an excuse to kind of just pull back, because it felt like something that I could justify by not being involved in. And honestly, like, I feel like it was a mistake. It was a mistake on my part. And it's something that me and Jessica have talked a lot about one-on-one personally, like, and have had to kind of just like heal some stuff up. Through all those conversations with me and Jessica, she enjoyed the content creation when I was more present with her. She loves connecting with you guys and helping, but she enjoyed it more when we were doing it together. Going alongside with the fact that about 2 years ago, I just had a feeling that making content also was something that I was supposed to be doing, and that it was important. The first part of that journey, I kind of struggled with the fact that, like, I didn't really feel like I had anything to offer. I don't feel like I'm a particular expert in much of anything. I am just really good at teaching myself stuff, or failing, or being willing to fail until I succeed, and figuring things out. I am pretty good at a lot of stuff now, but like none of that was something that I'm like traditionally trained or had some kind of big mentor. It's really just the fact that I'm willing to try something and do something until I get good at it. Overcoming the idea that I didn't have anything to offer was a big first step. It was probably one of the more difficult things I had to process and work out, just through conversation, quiet time, prayer, internal introspection. But in the end, I settled in on and knew and was confident in the fact that, like, I do have something to bring to the table. And honestly, I believe that anyone else who's thinking the same thing, or stuck in the same mindset of, I don't have anything to bring that is worthwhile to teach people, inspire people, whatever, like, it's most likely not true. Everybody has a purpose in their life. Like, I don't know exactly what that is, but there's definitely value and purpose to you being here, because I honestly believe that Yahweh has a plan for all of us. I say that, and I know it can sometimes come across as cliche, but like, it really was a foundational thing that helped me make the jump internally to the confidence of doing what I feel like I'm supposed to do. So now that I've made that decision, made that jump, made that mindset change, I had to figure out, okay, well, what do I do with this? I'll go back to my channel, Miahs Workshop, and start figuring out how I can post stuff, get it, back to, some kind of consistency. And really, like, in the end, I felt like that actually wasn't the right choice to start. So what ended up being what I felt like was the path forward for me was reconnecting and reestablishing my presence on our first channel, Roots and Refuge Farm. So for the past like 8-ish weeks, that's kind of what I've done. I've been way more involved with videos with Jess. I've shot some videos on my own that I've posted up there. And in that, though, what I've done is I kind of have re-engaged my consciousness and my mindsets into being able to do this consistently, because it's important. And so now I'm taking that a few weeks of success of saying, okay, see, showing myself that I can do it, that I do have time, and that it's valuable. So now I'm going to incorporate Miahs Workshop as well. So I'm going to maintain my presence and the progress I've made on Roots and Refuge. I feel like it's important for us to be doing that together. I'm really going to be pursuing posting consistently on Miahs Workshop as well. And I think maybe the reason why I haven't had as much success in the Miahs Workshop before is because when I was posting on that, but like I hadn't reestablished my presence on Roots and Refuge, like it felt a little off for me. Like, and it almost felt like a little bit like competition between me and Jessica. Like, and I know that we're really not in competition, and she knows that also. But like, that was almost kind of some of the feelings I had, which was kind of feeding into why I wasn't doing it as consistently as I wanted to, or I'd hoped I would. And so in reestablishing and reconnecting with my Roots and Refuge audience and with Jessica in that process, like, that's just kind of been eliminated. And I really just have this piece about it's time to move forward with Miahs Workshop. Now, an interesting development in that, as I'm going through this internal process, and at this time still trying to figure out how to build the house, like the house thing, like I said, kind of shut down but we pivoted into something different. And it's almost like as I was internally getting stuff worked out, externally things were being orchestrated that was actually going to line me up to land at the time that I'm ready to start posting Miah's workshop videos. And guess what? It's time to start building the workshop. And I want to say one of the more fascinating things about this whole convergence of internal, external processes is that when I was shooting videos before and I would say, hey, welcome back to Miah's workshop, internally, so like in my head, I'm telling myself, you don't even have a workshop. You haven't even started your workshop. It feels weird saying welcome back to Miah's workshop when I don't actually have that space. So my spiritual and inner world getting worked out at the same time that things were being orchestrated for the shop to get started. I don't feel like it's coincidence. I feel like it was definitely the Lord working some things out. And like I said, putting me on the right path to get to where I'm supposed to go, even though I had to exit the path of the house to get back to the path of the shop. I really am excited about what we've already been doing, but like what's coming next. And that is the shop. The shop build has actually started. Before I go out and show you guys kind of like what's happened so far, I wanted to take you guys over these plans. So I've had these plans for almost 18 months, I think, maybe a little bit longer. No, maybe closer to 2 years. I can't really remember exactly when I got them back. But these are the shop plans. And, you know, it's been a journey to get to this point. But I want to take you guys and show you guys kind of like what we've come up with and what we're about to jump into together. All right, I've got them laid out here. I'm gonna flip you guys around. Oh, wrong way. All right. It's gonna be hard to see, but if you pull back and look at it, that is all the little pieces of the shop. And it's just, you know, different pages that show different plans and how you're going to make connections and all the different hardware needed. Alright, so let's step outside. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the journey that I've been on to get to this shop, what style of building we're building, and why I decided to do it. I'm standing out here in the middle of all the stacks of timbers that we've got to build this shop. I have always wanted to have my own woodworking shop, and you know, being able to have a shop on a homestead is super helpful as far as like just space for processing food, you know, bringing in harvest. There's so many benefits to having that kind of workspace. However, like we could have accomplished that goal with a pole barn, a, you know, steel building. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can build, you know, a shop. However, whenever I was kind of deciding how I wanted the shop to be and what I wanted it to look like, I had the opportunity to visit my friend Nick. We had just moved here and we were invited to go to like a party or some kind of get together at his property where he had built himself a Timberframe barn of all things. Now, I have heard people talk about Nick's barn, but I had not seen it for myself yet. And honestly, this was the first time that we were meeting Nick. We come up on this night, we go to the party, we show up at the barn, and I walk in and I'm like, this is fascinating. Just the look of it, the fact that he did it himself. It was just all super inspiring. This was definitely one of those times that like it struck something in me and I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is fascinating. I want to know how to do this. And so that kind of started the conversation between me and Nick, and we sat down at lunch one day a couple of weeks later and we started kind of like planning out him helping teach me how to do timber frame. And the fact that, like, honestly, I had this idea of like a 50 by 100 shop. I said, is it even possible to do timber frame that big? He said, yes, here's how we could do it. So we spent all this time kind of designing a building that's a timber frame, right? And then the county ends up requiring me to get engineered plans because the inspectors are not familiar with this kind of framing. So if you're not familiar with timber framing, let's say traditional houses are usually what we call stick framing, which is 2x4s, 2x6s, laminated beams, things like that. So timber framing is taking like rough cut timbers And the joinery, what I mean by joinery is like, if you take two boards and you nail them together, you joined them, or you screwed them together, you joined them. So that's the joinery. The joinery of a timber frame is actually mostly using wood to join it together. So it's about notching and cutting and chiseling and forming these pieces of timber to be joined together and be held in place with wood pins. Right, and this whole thing is just like, it's an very old style of building, and it was just like, like I said, it struck something in me, and I was like, I have to do this. I invested the money I needed to invest to get the engineered plans, to get the county to approve what I wanted to do. And once I got the plans back, they gave me a cut list of timbers of all the timbers I was going to need to accomplish my goal. And so I went to a local sawyer and basically over the next year purchased all these timbers that are around me right here. All right, so I've got all the timbers now that I need to build the shop, and we've got them covered under tin to kind of keep as much moisture off of them as I can. What's really fascinating about all this is that this is going to turn into a shop, and it's just like, I don't know, it's exciting. However, on the flip side of it being exciting, it's a little overwhelming because, here's the reality. I told you I'm not that great at everything. I'm not an expert. Like, I actually don't really know how to read plans that well. And so I'm going to have to get somebody who does to kind of show me and walk me through, hey, here's what this means, and here's how this is going to connect, and this is how you take that measurement. And Nick's going to come and he's going to show me how to do the joinery and how to assemble things and stand things up. And it's this whole process of building that I know nothing about. I've never timber framed. I've never even come close to doing anything timber framing at all. And so I'm on this whole journey now of not just building my shop, which is exciting, but I'm also taking on something scary and new and exciting. And I'm going to teach myself how to build a timber frame structure, and I'm going to do it on a 50 by 100 shop. And by the end, I'm sure that this piece of construction is just going to be beautiful and amazing, and it's going to be worth it. But to tell you guys that I'm like super confident about it all, that wouldn't be true. I'm kind of terrified in some aspects, and it's like, but I'm going to face this and I'm going to do it, and y'all are going to go with me, and we're going to figure out how to do this. And then I hope that I can inspire somebody else to do something similar, just like Nick inspired me. But when Nick built his timber frame barn, he didn't even know me. I hadn't even moved to South Carolina yet. But it has inspired me significantly, and I think that it's going to have a huge impact, not just on my life, but anyone that my life connects to. I mean, there's so much depth to doing something like this because of the unknown factors of, can I do it? What ifs, things like that. And like, we're just going to face them together and we're going to do it. And I think it's going to be fantastic and beautiful in the end. So we've got the timbers here. And now I'm going to show you where we are at in the process of the project. So this is step one. We've got footers. This is the foundation forms. That's all the materials for the rest of the foundation. All right, and so now we're standing in what will be the shop. So this is going to be the main part of the woodworking shop. There's 3 different spaces, I should say, identified spaces. So I'm going to take you guys on a quick tour. All right, so we're on the first level. There's our house. All right, so up here, this is the front porch. The front porch is identified or separated by this footer right here. So that's the porch. This is the front of the building. So you'll come on the front porch. This space is going to be what we call the community room. It's an idea I had for hosting stuff, having a space for like Will and Wes who work with us to come and take lunch. It'll have a kitchen up against that wall. It'll have a bathroom with a sink and a shower right here. And then we're going to do some tables and stuff out here in the middle. This is going to give us the ability to bring people out to our farm in limited capacities, but regularly, to come out and learn and experience and partake in what we're doing out here. We haven't really done that to this point because our property in Arkansas definitely didn't accommodate it, and this place was better because we had more space, but we didn't have the facilities. Like, we don't have a bathroom that people can use, and you know, we didn't have indoor space in case it rained that we could house the class if we needed to pivot from being outside. And so one of the really exciting things about having the community room done is like what that's going to allow us to do for our community moving forward. All right, right here is where things are going to separate. That right there. So there's going to be a one-step step down, which I'm just going to try and jump over it. The main workshop is essentially just going to be what it is, like what it sounds like. I'm going to have tools, and we'll have just different stations for saws and places to put stuff that we're working on, places to hang up chainsaws, weed eaters, things like that. It'll have a couple of sliding barn doors on this side, and this side we'll have a walk door that goes back towards my current office right there. I'll give you some dimensions. Like I said, it's a 50 by 100. The first community room part is a 30-foot wide by 50-foot wide section. So that means it leaves the 70 by 50 for the rest of the shop. But there's a 40-foot section. It'll be a 40 by 40-foot section that'll actually have a second story above it. And that's actually where my office is going to go. And once I move my office up there, I'm actually going to turn this into like a guest house or a place for people to, when they come and stay with us, to be able to come and stay. Like when Jackson comes back, because he's about to go to college, when he comes back and visits before we have our main house built, I'm going to convert this into something that they can stay in. Because I've already done a lot of the work on the inside, we would just have to make some modifications. So I'm going to have an office above, a 40-foot section of the main shop, and then we'll have this wide open section that's 30 more feet at the very end, and that'll give us a lot more headspace if I have something really tall or something like that we're working on. So our next steps for the shop is going to be, we got to get a couple of inspections passed, which I'm sure won't be a problem. The plumbing inspections first, then they're going to come and finish all the footings once the plumbing's been cleared, and then they'll get essentially a footings inspection, and the footings inspection will come once they've actually got all the wire, the plastic, and the individual footings dug for where the beams are going to make contact to the foundation. So an interesting thing about this style of construction is, like on a pole barn, they drop the treated beams into the ground and will concrete them in the ground. But with Timberframe, you're actually you make the pad, and then you actually drill epoxied anchors into the concrete, and then lock the timbers on top with I don't even know, it's a special kind of clamp that's for timber framing. So I actually don't have one right now. I've got to order a lot of the hardware for this build, but once I get one further down the road, we'll go over how we use it and all of that, because there's, like I said, there's so much about this whole project that I've never done or never experienced. So we're just going to be going on this like really awesome journey of learning and figuring things out together. In case you were wondering, I'm not actually doing the foundation myself at all. That is something that I'm not willing to figure out because there are so many particular issues that can go wrong with this, especially this big of a pour, the foundational plumbing. I did not do that also because I'm not confident enough with code, because I have to pass code, and two, like calculating fall and things like that. So these two jobs I actually am subbing out to more professional people. But as far as the rest of the construction, even the electrical and things like that, it's all on me. The only other thing that I'm considering subbing out because of its complexity would be the roof, because the two things I was like, I do not want to have problems with is the foundation and the roof. Everything else I feel confident enough that I can do it myself. But anyways, we're on this journey together. I'm excited, I'm grateful, and I look forward to doing this journey with all of you. So thank you, and I will catch you guys on the next Miahs workshop video. And it feels so much better to say that now that I have the workshop started.